Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And this eclipse has been highly political, with the Ketu in Libra, which is very much related to world politics, the balancing of things. And it was visible in Chile and Argentina. I talked about Chile and I began to look at the news. Apparently, there are kind of attempts to overthrow a tyrannical regime going on. I don't know how new is that. Argument about policing versus governance. So there's a woman who is running to basically be a rebel. Okay, she's kind of rebelling a tyrannical regime in Chile. So a lot of interesting stuff, and I will just keep checking, okay? And then I looked at the Argentina chart, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty much the same story. So I haven't checked the news yet, and because I like to look at the chart first. But Argentina as well has Rahu on 13 degrees Libra. And so this giving us an eclipse that is a nodal reversal for the country. So that means pretty much similar things. I would predict pretty much similar things to Chile. And if I take a look at Mars for Argentina, Mars is in Gemini. And currently Mars is transiting Cancer, which would be the 5th house for Argentina. So Gemini is the 4th house. And so it's given me could be certain conflicts, okay, because Mars is fighting, okay, could be certain conflicts and division, social division between people. So it predicts social unrest, and Venus is also in Gemini. So the ruler of Rahu and the ruler of Ketu are both in the 4th house, and that can be simply a change of direction that is going backwards from where the country has been going to. That can be good or bad depending on where the country is going to, but very much like Chile, okay, a very similar chart, which was very surprising for me to take a look at these, two countries that are usually not so much on the news, especially not since like Ukraine and Palestine and all of these things happening. Then I take a look at Netherlands again, because Aries is given a lot of Netherlands vibes. There are the talks of Nexit, and right now there's the question of will the government fall apart, which will lead Netherlands to another elections. And that is not impossible that PVV leader Geert Wilders will eventually step up and complete his kind of like, I don't want to say overtaking the regime, because that's a harsh word, and it's completely untrue, because it's even when we consider extortion, it's not so much agency to the politicians that are being extorted in that sense. But I did see him rise for the solar eclipse that we had in Aries, and this solar eclipse takes place on his Mercury, which rules his entire Virgo stellium, and is basically Ketu, okay, is on that Mercury, which means this, a change of tactic, a change of strategy, a change of the way things are balanced, and perhaps moving forward, okay, no longer people pleasing, no longer working with people, and indeed he set himself apart again, okay. If you think about the previous time, he set himself apart from Rutte and became leader of the opposition. The opposition became bigger, and now he's doing this again. Okay, he gave up being prime minister, and I was joking about the chosen one is a spy, and I said that we have a spy minister. Although we know that everyone is imbued with intelligence, you cannot not be infused with intelligence services when you're doing such roles, especially not when you breathe it into them. You wouldn't watch Mama versus Mafia about that. But I see again that Wilders having this tactic where he separates himself from the status quo and the agreement and distinguishing himself, so people will vote more for PVV and he will be prime minister. I can definitely see that happening. This would be very interesting astrologically of how such a move happens with the Ketu rather than with a Rahu. Okay, if the solar eclipse was on Rahu Jupiter, Rahu Moon, then the Ketu is the completion and the breaking apart from the diplomatic strategy, from the mingling strategy, into a position of that could place the person in a position of leadership. So that would be interesting, and in such case, we'd have to see what's on for the Netherlands, because for the Netherlands, the possibility of Nexit, the possibility of redefining its Declaration of Independence from Brussels, from EU, bears a lot of meaning also militarily. Okay, the consideration that Netherlands would acquire or want to unite with the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium, which is giving Crimea. On the other hand, we cannot ignore the fact that if Dutch, if Netherlands wants to continue on being a country where you can still see the fields, you can still see the roads, you can still see the trees, because there is a party that wants to build skyscrapers in Netherlands. Okay, so there's a party that wants only 75% Dutch blood to be in Netherlands, which means nobody. Because especially not when you take into consideration the elite cults that do the inbreeding by incest, which basically takes a toll on fertility, and then you have to put in other bloodline in order to breed children. Okay, this is what the Juppie Capricorn is doing in Netherlands chart. Okay, simply because of ancestral archaic tradition of breeding causes sperm count deterioration and even active castrating, which necessitates basically colonialism. Okay, and that's an internal. Okay, that needs to change all across the board. It's not because of it's not because of sperm count. It's because of the well-being of like people in general, elite or not. And now the question is if Netherlands will expand territorially and will have to defend itself, all the while doing Nexit. And the question of Gilden. Okay, I was joking that Geertje will bring us Gilden. And indeed, there are conversations about Gilden, about a currency that is local. In what way would that coincide with what's happening right now militarily, and that is the recruitment to NATO. Okay, so that's something I've been sleeping on because the fact that the government, and indeed you see the Ketu in, we have at least two charts for Netherlands. One is from the 1200s and another from the 1500s. And we definitely see with the Ketu Libra denoting both of Venus and Saturn being Ketu, so the structure, the government structure, the leadership structure, modern days would be governmental, being Ketu'd and disintegrating, and then we have a certain sort of conflict, because Rahu Aries denotes of a conflict or a separation, individuation, but it is a militant one. So Dutch people should be prepared for recruitment, whether it is to NATO, okay, under Rutte now, which was Prime Minister of Netherlands for 20 years, and NATO has been claiming for immunity. So there's another thing that indirectly touches on that, and that's the lawsuit against Rutte because of the 1,100 children kidnapped by taxes scandal that happened under his regime. If it's not Rutte, you have to have entire parliament agreeing to not impeach prime minister when such a thing happened. But yes, children were taken from their parents because the parents did not fill out form correctly for receiving childcare. So that was the excuse. Entire Tweede Kamer Parliament went along with that. Nobody did successful impeachment. And we have 1,100 children for, under Prime Minister, it was under COVID, that he himself broke the code of COVID, okay? So he was shaking hands. We were supposed to like not shake hands or whatnot. So not really paying attention to that whole thing which is government enforced, okay? With the lockdowns and everything. But the lockdowns were also winter shelters for people. And I know that because I was those people at that time. And so this is another thing that denotes as if we don't address certain questions in one way, then the nature tends to correct for that and we address them in another way. So the question is, will Rutte get impunity when he's head of NATO, now enter the job of head of NATO? But another thing is that the lawsuit is involving now Brussels, but it should have been in Netherlands or maybe in The Hague, because this is within the Netherlands, but it has to be outside the Netherlands because the Netherlands is being sued as well. And NATO said, well, involve Brussels. Now, what do we know about Brussels? We know that Brussels decides for entire Europe which refugees they will take in, okay? And Brussels is one of the reasons that Geert Wilders wants to do an exit move, okay? So not to have Brussels deciding, okay? The same judges that were involved in the Marc de Troyes case 1996, which apparently touches on 2008, that predicts a touch on that as Pluto finishes up in Capricorn. But it's the same Brussels that, covered up for the entire Epstein ring, but the Epstein. And so this solitary man that raped all these children and kidnapped them, physically impossible. I mean, he would have to be Ubermensch to do that. We all know that's not what happens, especially not when we have pictures, you can see in Mama versus Mafia, of politicians, including Dutch politicians. And yes, if you're curious, watch that channel, Mama versus Mafia on YouTube. And so it's the same Brussels that have been covering up for the Peter Rings and been infused with the Peter Rings that is being called for to vindicate in the case of the 1,100 kidnapped by the welfare, kidnapped by Texas. We all know it went directly to the Peter Rings, okay? There's yes, it's beyond reasonable doubt. Sneezing on truth. Thank you. That's what that's what was entailed by COVID. Okay, so by WHO. So it's not coming from Netherlands, but by the COVID restrictions, which by taxation of a proxy did this type of trick where the children were kidnapped. Okay, so you could blame Rutte all day long, but it won't return the children. My opinion, you don't have to agree with me. Now, why does that matter so much? Because this is given a juristic question that pertains to what will be the authority of Brussels versus Netherlands. Who do you sue Netherlands for war crimes? Also The Hague, and Brussels obviously is not so compatible, right? And then the question of Nexit and army recruitment, would it be to NATO or would it be to PVV, okay? Or to Netherlands or to Royal Dutch Army? Mandatory army recruitment is something Dutch citizens are more susceptible to if they're the age of recruitment. And what would be the question, or how would that affect if Netherlands is going for an exit, is going from an exit not only from the EU but basically from NATO? All the while we have a globalization of NATO reaching out to Africa, reaching out to South Korea. That's the right Korea. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I'm in the right Korea. Okay, I just said no, North Korea is welcome as well. Reaching out to extend, okay, its authority, because the role of NATO structurally is basically to compete for being the global army. Okay, if we're talking about globalism, and if we're talking about World Economic Forum and WHO, we're talking about one world government. So what would be the one world army? One of the competitors is NATO, and Mark Rutte, head of NATO right now, is a very natural choice. He's already agenda contributor in the WEF, okay, and has served as prime minister for 20 years. Okay, with his main role being very accommodating for the people around. The good thing, he has Procyon, Procyon, okay, Jupiter on Procyon, which is actually a great denuclearificator. So I'm just curious to see how will things go from here. But that's very interesting to see how Netherlands or basically Geert Wilders could lead a stream of breaking free from the EU and basically breaking free from NATO. But that would not necessitate world peace, okay? As Netherlands would have to defend itself and have to build up the Royal Dutch Army again to basically withstand infiltration of NATO, that's now headed by the ex-Dutch Prime Minister. So it's fascinating. There's a lot of tea in Europe. All the tea is in Europe right now, and yet we have Chile and Argentina into the mix, which is kind of like coming up out of nowhere. The country we haven't been paying attention to too much, with all the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, in Europe, and definitely not when just you wake up and Israel is in Lebanon again for the third time and having its second independence war, and then there's something with Iran. Okay, so I really don't know. Imagine that's your first day in a job of like making sure everything is in check. The whole world is exploding. But then when Benjamin Netanyahu called Dutch Prime Minister in 7th October, before he was announcing anything to we the people, he was calling Dutch Prime Minister, who was back then Mark Rutte. So this is just one man at the job. But the fact that the Netherlands has such agency, the Netherlands, again, not any particular person, but the Netherlands, is very fascinating. I think the role of the Netherlands will be further exposed, especially when Pluto travels onwards to Aquarius, where it's the sign oppositing the sign of monarchy, and we know royal Dutch family is monarchy, and the fact that Pluto is going to be traveling over the sign of monarchy, over Leo, opposing Leo, will be exposing in a very blunt way anything that we didn't know about royal families in general, and Dutch royal families' role in the world, hidden or not, that we didn't even know of. So that's shitload of stuff just to begin with, and this is mundane skies, where Mars is approaching the opposition with Pluto heads on from Cancer, then Leo, then Cancer, then Leo, for a while until the spring, which is likely to be the spring of nations. But as I said, it is a winter. So the winter is wintering. Things that calm me down, okay? Things that calm me down. One thing that calmed me down is notion that head of NATO has Jupiter on Procyon, okay? Jupiter is basically expansion, optimism, benevolence. Procyon is the sweetener of conflicts, okay? So if you think about the state of Israel losing it, and the state of Israel has a midheaven on Procyon, okay? So the state of Israel losing it, because that's what it was, okay? That you wake up one day and then the entire troops and people being killed in Lebanon, the same way they did in the last two wars, and the guy that took them out of Lebanon was Ehud Barak, who was a member, a demented member in Epstein ring, who thought there's nothing wrong that he slept with a 13, 14 years old girl. And you understand that the snuff films that they make in Epstein Island, that they make at the war, okay? So you wake up like this, and then the next day is a jolly parade with Iran. And Israel is basically, kind of lost it. Okay, hell broke loose. And you say, well, you can't blame, or you can blame, or Am Israel Chai, Am Israel Schrödinger. But anyway, Israel is not operating as a sweetener of conflicts right now. And we definitely need some entity that does. So having head of a global military organization with a benevolent star on Procyon is basically positioning him as one of kind of the key figures that are supposed to sweeten a conflict, are supposed to sweeten a nuclear war, okay, have to avoid a nuclear war. So this is one of the things that are more calming. And it's not going to be easy to get rid of Rutte. Okay, if Rutte gets the boot, he gets the boot upstairs. And you can watch my my episode on Rutte's chart. It's not a person that's easy to swindle, and I see the attempts. Okay, if you see 20 years, they were like Rutte, and then one sudden day, it's like, oh well, the 1100. Well, Rutte himself, like Wilders, is survivor of satanic ritual abuse, had to perpetrate it in order to be survivor. And I know it because the person who was hurt by him and Wilders spoke up, and he witnessed them being abused as well. So so it's obviously not news, and we obviously have to address it in a way that's a bit more serious than the War of the Peterings, if we want to reach results. And so and I do think that that's one of a more, calming, yes, situations. As per Netherlands, I'm really not calm. Okay, I have to admit, I'm really not calm. Forging itself is going to be exposed for a lot of things. This was where the court, the ICC, was sitting up until now in The Hague. Royal family, okay, just structurally, any country where that would be the case, just structurally, something is going to be. And when Netherlands is sued for war crimes, okay, and mind you, the 1100 is a war crime, okay? I'm not talking about Rutte, I'm not even talking about the Tweede Kamer, I'm talking about the very possibility that the taxation in a country work in such a way that allows to take children because family has no money, because it didn't fill out correct form. This in itself is war crime. Structural, the structure, okay? Who litigated this structure? Who did not change this structure? The many factors, and the people who blackmail or enslave our politicians, who enslave our judges, or enslave even our Supreme Court judges, okay? For those people are the ones that are going to have to be exposed, and they very likely enslave also royal family, okay? So this is something that kind of sends you into turmoil if you have any loved ones in Netherlands, especially in the recruitment age. So that's something where I'm not so calm. I have to admit it, okay? And since on the Masonic level, this has been openly talked about, okay, on the Masonic level, what's planned is a world war where it's going to be between Muslims and Christians, or Judeo-Christians, or Muslims and Christians. All the while, we're talking about, as a person who tended to political assassination, the death threats on Wilders that was outspoken against the treatment of children and women in Islam, and not wanting to import that to Netherlands. The death threats that came from supposedly the Muslim Brotherhood, was Muslim Brotherhood of Satan. You could see the symbolism. Wearing the green Adidas, that was a moment, okay? That was like literally laughing in all of our faces. But from him, he knows that it is lethal, okay? It's you laugh at the face of threat, but it is lethal, and it's the same cult that satanically ritual used him that does the same thing. So there's no actual separation between a Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Never have been. at least as not as the Rosicrucian exists, was a couple of centuries. And so the image of conflict here, we should be cautious from. And the shamanic antidote is as it is, the way we treat the marginalized in societies, the way people are treated in jail, in hospital, and in exile. Those people, that treatment denotes of what happens to the entire society in war. It's all shamanic teaching, it's 12th house teaching, and this is something, okay, if you want to be at least tending to, okay, we're not perfect, but at least tending to, and that can be very benefic, okay, when you tend to that, you can be having a head start where other people would not have the same, even calmity and resilience that you would knowing of what you know. So other things that we could use as a calm. We talked about the marginalized in society. This is given Aries in Aries, and Aries is an Andromeda constellation. It means that we reconcile the irreconcilable. Okay, I've been listening to Annika Lucas' recent interview. Just beginning to listen. We talk about forgiving the unforgiven or reconciling the irreconcilable, and basically going beneath power. Dynamics, okay, going to the essence of things, and I take it slowly myself because this is a very intense, okay, topic, and she's a survivor of satanic ritual abuse, was smuggled out by her handler, saved by her handler. Okay, for most of the people we see leading or making decisions hidden and visible were not saved, just very simply put, but nobody coming to save them. And sometimes when we talk about children, they do need saving. So that is a situation, okay, where we are dealing with. So Andromeda constellation can be called on to release refugees, to release the kidnapped, to reconcile back into society that which was irreconcilable, and the Aries archetype, okay, that which asks to throw chaos, so to have more breadth, to accommodate, okay, and to pray for people that remember, you know, if everybody has a sentence that would be written on their grave, for mine very likely would be: a free man, free woman did not oppress another. And that is something to keep in mind, because the freedom that's been marketed to people for their enslavement is you can get away with murder, rape, this, that. What about not even feeling the need or the desire to rape, to hoard, to torture? That's freedom. That's freedom. And a free man, a free woman did not oppress another. So Andromeda constellation can remind us of these values. And those are entities to call upon when we want to sweeten things. Okay, so that would be Procyon, that would be Andromeda, and sweetening is needed. I was talking about an astrologer that gives all these Venus archetypes and Lilith archetypes. I don't remember a name, I need to look again. And she posted about asteroid Lucifer conjuncting Mars in this eclipse. And she said, well, you have to observe the sky, because you know there are a lot of Luciferians in the astrological community where for them it's a sign of liberation, and even liberation from incest. There are a lot of stories that worship people, like every deity was worshipped in 1,000 ways, and people get triggered when we talk badly of Lucifer. So she said, no, I have a neighbor. Every time the Lucifer asteroid crosses something, I have a neighbor that acts from the ego, acts dumb. And so the fact that the ruler of Rahu now is Mars, and Lucifer conjuncts Mars, means that we're going to have a lot of people acting dumb. So we're going out of people pleasing. We also want to sweeten the effect of when people are just being dumb. Okay? When people are just acting from the ego, perhaps letting loose, but it's really, you know, it's really malefic, and it's really egotistical, and on a mundane level, we have to be cautious that people are going to want to let loose in a way that harms people, harms society, harms housing. Okay, that they're acting from egotistical place, harm housing. Particularly be cautious when there is abuse around housing. Okay, because this can backfire in Algol is still with Uranus. We're still Hitlering here. Okay, like really, that's not the time to mistreat people, mothers, or housing or whatnot. It is not the time to be abusive towards people that need housing. I will say it very clearly. It's not the time, okay? So some people maybe have been in a situation in their life where they're like, they want to be liberated, they want to take a hold of, I don't know, the lillith or whatnot. It was a lillith eclipse, let go of diplomacy and so on, have a midlife crisis, okay? If that comes up on your tenet, okay, you go down. You go down inside your own house. You go down, okay? This is not time where people think, oh, there's a war, I can abuse, I can this, I can that. This is going to hold such backfiring where you're going to be dealing with beta per se. So sweetening with Procyon, calling on Andromeda, excellent. But if abuse gets so much so that we're going to see people trying to abuse tenants for housing or stuff like that, especially with sexual abuse and stuff like that, I would not mess with the beta per se. And this is not the person's going to give you karma. But you might find out that your actions had such implications that they went out on the wrong person to such degree that that person already installed that magic that will say, even if the generation of men die, it's okay. It's just not to deal with this dumb fuckery. Okay? You are the two generations. So, very, very important, because Mars has tendency to intrude. So individuation is way better, but if you try to take it on the domestic, okay, if you try to take your rage on the domestic, to all this, like to try to take control over the domestic, or over even towards mothers or towards tenants, or just something like domestic violence, okay, I can't even begin to stress how deeply that will backfire. Like, we are this mandatory army recruitment. Like, mind your karma, okay? If it really, this mandatory army recruitment is out there, okay? It is there, and Urano Beta per se, so she's gonna put everybody in a death camp and kill them. Like, really, it's Hitlering, big time. So. And there are a lot of fated moves that can be in such ways. So some people, their fate is to die. So they do something like that is abusive. Then they die in a death camp. They die in gas. They die in whatever. But for some people, it's just, no, okay, you want to let loose from the constraints you have as business owner, or as this, or as that. And you want to go free and so on. And you misinterpret for that freedom of what it means. And your archaic point of view, okay, of what you do to person, take a note that everybody is living Libra right now. Everybody live in Libra. Not, I'm sorry if you're a Libra. It's not that you get dumped, but very likely you are, wherever Libra is in your chart, okay, you're letting loose even around yourself, okay, leaving your old identity. Okay, you're leaving your old identity and you're adopting a new identity. The temptation is for that identity to be somewhat Luciferian, okay? And if that Lucifer is abusive, okay, there are many ways to see Lucifer, but if that Lucifer is abusive, especially around housing and around the moon, okay, then you might lose your head, okay? This is still... Lilith is still doing Lilith things. It's Lilith eclipse. Beta per se is still doing her thing. And Venus with 11 degrees Scorpio was on a suicide mission. Okay? She gonna turn this bitch around in one way, so much so that, in some cases, and I don't support that, you come to rape, you are raped. Okay, remember for the snuff film what they did with Annika Lucas. Okay, she was a young girl, gave a weapon. Two older men. The snuff film had a surprise where the little girl that they don't think can defend herself kills these two men. Okay, so you might find yourself in such snuff film as older men. Okay, it's a suicide mission. For the Venus is in suicide mission. She's in Scorpio. She's transformative. Scorpio is water sign. Water sign, they tend to turn the energy around. And return to senders, return to, first of all, survivalistic, return to sender, out of this. Purging out of this. Okay, that your dead body scattered all over the place. Okay, that's something that some people is their fate. Some people, their fate, they're gonna die, it's their fate. Okay, they're gonna be scattered all over because that's their fate. Okay, so it's something the soul came to live this journey. Can't do anything about that. But for most people, okay, even though the event is fated, but you can call on Procyon, you can call on Andromeda to have the remediation. And then you don't trigger, for better per se, the Spica, that's the ruler of Ketu, Lilith, all these female diamonds that you don't want to mess with, but can give you great wealth when you honor them, when you respect them. So I said what I said, okay? Because otherwise, and it's, you have to be particular if you have like Cancer 12th house or 12th house Mars or something like that. You might not be aware of the archaic notions and perceptions you have around Mars, okay, penis, sexuality, sex, and so on, where you can think something is not a big deal. That is where you're particularly, especially if you view it, because Lilith type is like, oh, but she wears so-and-so. I ran into a tarot reader, okay? On the day of eclipse, she was wearing cleavage. Okay, so she was wearing cleavage, okay? Another day she had a channeling from ancestor that said, Mama, wear a bra because you're killing my back. Okay, but that video, she was wearing cleavage. And apparently the next day, she showed up, she said, for 5 minutes, she said, I'm going to block you guys if you are going to comment of whether I smoke or whether I wear cleavage. Some of your ancestors, they were fucking, okay? So I just think about the Lilith clips and about the fact that she just wears something casual that she wears that had cleavage. Okay, so what? And given a tarot reading, ancestral tarot reading, she's job what you do best. And so people with archaic notion can think, okay, but would that be respectful that you wear this cleavage and it's ancestral and so and so and so? That send her over the roof, and rightfully so, but some people not aware of that. And with Lilith, there is tendency to think if a person wears something, if a person living alone, if a person, not just women, okay, if a person is, more casual, more this, more that, there can be tendency to think you own this person. Now they are going to sleep with you just because first of all, it's dishonoring of your sexuality, because if person sleeps with you, it sleeps with you, okay? And if not, okay? It's not like they sleep with everybody, they would sleep with me. You are disrespecting of your own sexuality if you think like that. And secondly, that person might already be dealing with such stigma, okay? You could be the straw. What was the eclipse? The straw that broke the camel's back. So that person can expose you for your entire city, entire village, entire field of colleagues, and say it's problem for man to live alone, it's problem for woman to live alone. This can happen to men too. Man lives alone, or he probably sleeps around and so on. Then makler comes, or a state owner comes, and she's woman, she's lonely, she thinks, oh, yes, I give you. It happens to men too, it's not just women. So this is something where I see problem, especially with the war. Some people have this archaic notion, darling, you end up at the gas chamber. Or especially I woke up for today, but somebody in energy was mad. Why you said 2 generations of men had to die? But it's like, I didn't say, darling, you were teaching that in academia. You're teaching. You were teaching us that. I was repeating your teaching and saying this is true. And your teaching is true. It was your teaching. And of course, look at what you guys did. Look what you guys did 7th October. Look what you did in spirit. Look what you did in that. What do you think? People prefer for this to no longer be. They would say, the person would say, I would no longer be. Yes, but if I would no longer be, then you reincarnate, problem not solved. Then that has to be addressed. Okay? So I would prefer everyone to die, but just to be, just to live, just to be. All this trying to hoard, trying to this, trying to that. So okay, 2 generations died, then women can vote, then women can have bank accounts and so on. That's also for this lillith eclipse. And then there's the Luciferian, the guy that tries to act from the ego to this, to that, and to shame, to this, to that. It's like, no, we're releasing that. But if a person acts from this Luciferian place, they can be the straw that broke the camel's back, and especially, particularly when it to do with housing, mothers and or child-free people who got their children kidnapped. Okay, what's more lunar? Food, around topics of food. Okay, try to mess with someone's food. Try to mess with someone's food, with someone's accessibility to nourishing food. Okay, I had social worker that tried to do that. I told the tax officer, she my accountant. Okay, to her luck, I was not owning anything to taxation because they own us, Shiluim. But that's how mad I got. Okay, you mess with my food, go ahead, be my accountant. Represent me in the tax offices. Okay, you get dividends, go get food. Why? I'm supposed to be sexually harassed and worse things because you keep your position? You ask for me if I need anything. I didn't ask for you nothing. You ask for me if I need anything to turn to you. I said I need clothes, I need food. And when I get food, you said as a social worker knows because you try to cancel this and leave me what? Sex trafficked? Then you're my accountant now. You better bet I wasn't Donald Trump, because if I was, I would say you were my accountant. You would go to jail. Your husband would or your daughter. So this is how malefic things can be, okay? You don't want to act Luciferian on anything Cancerian right now. Anything Cancerian. You don't want to act Luciferian on anything Cancerian. But it's also a good time to talk about how the hermaphrodite cults use the moon harvesting to perpetuate trauma. Okay, the Luciferian act on the hermaphrodite cults. Okay, and expose for that. So that's the addition that I have around the ruler of Rahu for this eclipse, because it tips the scale in such a way where people are going out of diplomacy and kind of like the true faces are exposed. And if their true faces are acting from ego, that could be just something simple that is, there's a doggone thing and you can, pacify it with Procyon and so on. But if it's more serious, damage to the food, damage to fertility, to the womb, to the breasts, okay? Think about the health of the breasts. If I think about that tarot reader, she was attacked for basically wearing cleavage to do with the breasts. I guess somebody thought they had the nerve. Okay, you cut them off, you blocked them. Okay, and that's a very lillith eclipse. Okay, that's a very lillith eclipse in that way. So anything to do with that, then when it hurts the person, okay, so what do you mean 2 generations of men died? It was like, it was your teaching. Your teaching, and teaching was true. You are a war veteran because they see you as the feminine and they deprive you of help that could really set your life on track. They deprive you. You have to be alcoholic, you have to be this, you have to be that for this intelligence cult, for this hermaphrodite cult, because they see you as the feminine. That's why you didn't get help. You're a war veteran. It's not just the wounds, it's also the soul, it's also the psychology. Yeah, but you did not get help because they saw you the feminine. Then you go and cooperate with these behaviors in spirit and in matter. Yes, of course, is your teaching correct? It's your teaching and it's true. Okay? This is a very Lilithesque thing. So what we try to do to people, you overwhelm them, you torture them, you imprison them, you kidnap them, you do all these crazy things to them for what? Over nothing. All these years over nothing. Try to divert them from the path over nothing. Okay? It's those things. And we try to mess with the food, we try to mess with the medicine, try to mess with the housing. What do you think will happen? What do you think will happen? You said it, 2 generations of men had to die before women were a bit more free. Are you a part of these 2 generations? You set the tone. Okay? That's it. So thank you for watching, and I will keep updating you if I see something fancy going on in the world today. And yes, and again, this is showing us all for this eclipse that the way we've been treating that which is marginalized in society, that which we deem disrespectful, that which we deem for just trying to be, okay, that which we how we treat the people in prisons, in hospitals, all these things, they show, okay, and on who we give the boot to, okay. Think about head of NATO, he got the boot upstairs. Why you blame this person, this one person, over scandal that he is himself victim of this scandal? So he got the boot upstairs. You just go head of NATO. Good luck. You gave him. You made sure that he wasn't thinking to take this job, and then he had to take this job, so he took this job. That's what you did. Now he's getting immunity. Or if you really care about the children, then go. Let's talk about Rabobank. Let's talk about Royal Family. Let's talk about elite society. Let's give protection to the whistleblowers. Let's not give right for Brussels over any such decision. Okay? Those are a part of the things that are kind of coinciding in that level. Okay? So great Lilith eclipse. I get a lot of people probably got triggered around Cancerian things, so food, housing, boobs, okay, breasts, and the thought, okay. If you think about our thoughts around Lilith themes, to do with those, okay, nourishment, having enough and not having enough, breaking generational curses around this, okay, and the people that act from ego to interfere with what one have, one house, one food, or even make fun of one breasts because they have them. I don't know. Then that can backfire in a way where they get the boot, and they don't get the boot upstairs because they might get the boot down. Okay, 6 feet under, because you don't mess with person's housing. You don't mess with persons, okay. If you don't mess with person, but if you also gotta be careful. If you mess the girl you harassed her because of her boobs, she might take your house, okay. Really, breasts, housing, food, nourishment, mothering, caring, caregiving, all of this cancer, okay. If you're a psychologist and your job was to caretake, and you messed with that, of course, can create problems for your housing. If you additionally got so depressed about it, you try to create a housing problem for your patient after they're no longer your patient even, of course, it's also the grave, you know, cancer. So it's just like, okay, that just need to be said. Okay. Yeah. For the cancer wounds out there, they're having an interesting time, to say the least. So Cancer placements, okay, Cancer Rahus, you might break free from your Ketu. If your Ketu can be a place where you're imprisoned in your comfort zone, you might break free. So that is, for the Cancer placements, the Cancer Suns. You might break free from that on imprisonment that you have, whether it's mental or physical. So there's a chance as to, if you were tied down in all kinds of contracts that would not align in with you, you can break free. Just to be cautious and not doing the Luciferian thing from operating from place of ego, because that can undermine you as you break free. So that is the only caveat here. Ketu placements, well, it's, think about Ketu Capricorns. Okay, so the Ketu placement, the Capricorn, if you think about Capricorn as climbing up the ladder, there's something that's coming to culmination. So it's not necessarily that you are giving up, climbing up the ladder. You could be completing that and then going through to your Rahu. Okay, completing, like you climbed up the ladder, you got your acclaim, you got your thesis, you got your doctrine, you got whatever you came to bring, you're at the top of the top, and now you can let go. Hopefully that is the case for you. You can let go of that thing that Pluto's been doing in Capricorn. And November 19th, that's it. So we had the last eclipse with Pluto in Capricorn for the next 300 years or so. And that's it, okay? But no more surprises beyond the surprises under the scope of this eclipse. I was surprised to see that the Mark III was touched on in 2008 with Kainut 1996 and the White March, but we're going to have something to do with Brussels, okay? Again, and again, I'm not worried for the guy with the Jubi Procyon around that, okay? If you know, you know. If you watch Mama versus Mafia, you know. But definitely, I think Brussels will not be able to get away this time, and would not be able to hide under one or other satanic ritual abuse survivor that had to perpetrate in order to be alive, either. So, yes, you could disagree with me. I'm not saying my prediction's always correct. I did not predict they would try to assassinate Nasrallah and say it's successful. But so I can be wrong in my predictions too. But this, all in all, is kind of like the update. And yet again, the 2024, much like 2017. If in 2017 you did the job, okay, you did the background hidden job, and you got aligned on your path, then 2024 doesn't surprise you very much. Okay, it exposes things, it can change your point of view, but it doesn't surprise you very much. It's like, oh, that's why. Okay, but if you got stuck on something in 2017, and 2024 will ask you to release that, will ask you to dig deeper. And the willingness to dig deeper, and even the readiness to dig deeper, will facilitate more of the execretion of that moldy ladder, okay, that moldy pyramid, that moldy structure, okay, that even can pertain to your hair, your teeth, your bones, neurological diseases, okay? If you think about the mold in the body. So you might be on the road to really transform whatever is stagnant, whatever was stagnant in your life, and really address these things. And really let go, shed that old skin, and shed those old habits. Okay, something been keeping you from having the right nourishment, that can be breakthrough. Okay, but that Luciferian entity has to go. Okay, that Luciferian act has to go, and it can be the Luciferian act that is the last straw that broke the camel's back. It's like, hey, I was tired, so I was agreeing to that, but it's not like I ever consented. And this is where somebody tries to create like the final abuse of this situation, and the backfire, especially if you try to do hidden abuse, if you try to do hidden abuse of someone First of all, it's not hidden. The entire is global intelligence, and many people are dying to run out of the cults. So there's hidden help as much as there are hidden curses. And so, and these forces operate. Okay, these forces operate in the background. Sometimes people don't even know each other in the physical. They had past life together. So just like this karma is some stupid entity that constantly wants to, it's like sadistic and constantly wants to see me suffer. And I'm like, I just try to bless it so it will not even want to harm others. But all this weird shit, and they have the face, the expression, you know, this expression of that old person with the hat that's sitting and has his eyes open like that, like, They have this expression, it's like completely unrelated to anything. They don't see me correctly. It's like, you got the wrong number. You dialed the wrong number. Okay? So, and then you think about, you know, just sharing your story, just sharing your grace. And some people just have grace towards each other, and the karma is of grace towards each other. It's like, you know, you think, you know, some people fetch people up with other people thinking like they're gonna create conflict, they're gonna create this, they're gonna create, no, the people are gonna get along. You know, somebody vouches for you, you don't even know it. You vouch for someone that don't even know it. Okay. Somebody does magic to back off haters, you don't even know it. Okay. When I was in therapy, then when I was running away from a psychologist, I know there was a Palestinian witch that had my back, but I didn't think about it because we didn't meet each other. She went with her life, and she got, you know, climbed up the ladder and had her dreams come true and so on. And it's nothing. We just spoke in 2007, 2008. And then for my psychologist tried to attack me, she was attacking his entire psyche. We were just like, you cheated, you this, you that. I was like, wait. I was like, it's not even the problem. Wait. And so they got such backfiring. And the guy was MK Ultra, so you know, you never tell what he tried to do that. So it's like, hey, that person that we didn't speak for like a decade, they were still after, they were still seeing something in my energy, and they were like, I'm gonna get this dumb fuckery out. Okay? So, like, what can I say? You know, it's that really dumb shit that can happen in life. So again, if somebody feeling dread or desire to constantly hurt someone, as much, sometimes people, it's their fate and this journey of the soul, and you know that they go to their crisis. But sometimes if you can interfere in that or create tension, you might receive healing. Because you try to mess with people, you think, oh, this person is so and so and that, I'm going to swap destiny. But like, have you seen my lot of death? It's 10 degrees. Gemini, it's Aldebaran. It's Aldebaran. My lot of death is Aldebaran. Mine. Like, really? You want to swap with that? Okay, no. Like, that's, I wouldn't recommend, but some people can be stupid. They think this person is going to get richer, so this person lives in such and such place. You don't know what I'm going through within. They try to swap destinies, and I'm like, you're dumb or something. Okay? I'm trying myself to remediate this shit you tried. What the fuck? Or you think you can mess with such person, or for entertainment, or you mess with such and such and so on. I had a lot of people at the work that thought they could mess with me for entertainment. They were like, don't you know my 8th house Libra? Don't you know my 12th house Aquarius? Don't you know I got 22 Scorpio Mars? Don't you know I got a Scorpio stellium? Like, who you try to mess with? Don't you know my Nessus conjuncts my Degenera? I was like, who do you try to mess with? Okay. And then when that would backfire, they would feel like they're the victim. It's like, you're not the victim. You perpetuated this. What you thought was going to happen. And for me, I just get annoyed by this. With the 6th house, it's where you know, house of work and duties and stuff. So it's like one other trauma to do with work, and then it's like, okay, but I don't want to mess with that to begin with. I don't want to mess with that. I have no desire to do that. I have no desire to put my nessus on, because I have no desire to get hurt either, you know. So that is another thing that could be dredging up, okay, for all these people that think that for entertainment they can mess with somebody, and eventually they fall on that somebody. And I've been sick and tired of being that somebody that you fall on, and it's like all the karma for all the people you messed with is like poof, and I don't even understand why am I acting like this. Oh, it's the karma for this person's entire lifetime that they've been acting wrong, and I'm their karma. And I'm like, can I just live my life? Can people just act right and live and get along? And I don't know. So yeah, being at my 12 sitting like, with the head like they got something to say. You ain't got nothing to say. Okay, you dialed the wrong number. You ain't got nothing to say. You ain't got no reasoning to do that. I bless you. You wouldn't need to hurt another. That the free man, you'll be a free man in the sense the free man did not oppress another. Did not try to look and see, oh, when is she suffering? When is she this? When is she that? I'm like, the fuck? Why won't you just live your life and have, good life? And if you can, then I bless you to be able to, and to have that available to you. So obviously my suffering is not your resource. It's not. If you think to sacrifice it to the gods, and what is the greatest suffering is to take the person that tried to make everyone suffer, to sacrifice it to the God so that he will be okay, and to say, I want the greatest suffering is that all these things didn't help you now, you suffer. Okay? That's a Luciferian wisdom for you if you go the Luciferian way. Alternatively, you do charity like the rest of us, and make good changes in the world. So yeah, I'll see you in another video. Bye-bye.